I know, of course, I understand their little brains aren't wired that way yet.
No.
They're not thinking, oh, this thing is going to really upset my mom, so I'm going to do it. They're very self-interested. It's their wants and their needs.
That's something that we can be aware as adults. Like, how am I approaching this? How are they perceiving me? Just by the body language, they know that you're in a bad mood, that you are dangerous at that moment because of, not really dangerous, but just, the emotion. And so the child might go into fight, flight, freeze because, oh no, my mom's not in a good mood, or my dad, or.
If we still feel embarrassed because we were crying in public and our parents made us feel embarrassed about doing that because we were embarrassing them or whatever it is. And yeah, that now we are passing it on to the next generation. We still feel embarrassed because we haven't healed from it yet. So we show that embarrassment when they do that, and then they feel embarrassed about it. And that's how the patterns continue.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Lifelines. I'm your host, JC. Let's just take a deep breath. I don't know what it is, if it's November or December, there's the holidays, but it tends to bring like another level of stress or anxiety during this time of the year. I mean, I can't be the only one, right? Does anybody else agree? I don't know what it is, but anyways, I just finished having an incredible conversation with a colleague and friend. Her name is Victoria Peña. She is a licensed professional counselor located in San Antonio, Texas. And she has a private practice. It's called Rooted Mama Therapy. The mission of her private practice really resonates with me. I came across the concept of conscious parenting and gentle parenting around 2016, 2017, right after graduate school. And when I started learning about it, it just, I don't know, I feel like I experienced some kind of like paradigm shift. I started seeing the relationship between a parent and a child very sacred and special and of mutual respect and just different ways. But it also gave me kind of like tools and understanding that helped me reparent my own inner child. It also offered space for like self-compassion and forgiveness for others, for my parents. It helped me understand that, they do what they can. They've tried their best with the understanding, awareness, and the awareness they had at the time, the experience they had at the time. So I don't know, it was really helpful for me to learn about gentle parenting and conscious parenting. And I hope that it's helpful to you too. And if it is helpful to you or know anybody that might benefit from hearing this conversation, please share, comment, like, and subscribe. That would really, really help me out. Reach my goals for 2025, right? Come on, let's go. New year, new me. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Hi, please remember that everything we share on this podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It's not intended to substitute seeking advice from a medical doctor, licensed therapist, or other professional. Let's get started.
All right, so let's get started. Today's conversation is on gentle parenting. I'm so excited to dive into this. Gentle parenting is a concept I came across right after graduate school around 2016, and learning about it just fascinated me. It helped me see life in a different way, and it also helped me reflect on my own childhood experience. Although I don't have children of my own, I do have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I love them dearly. So this is an important conversation for me too. And I was a child once too, so I have some experience in parenting as a child. So this is something that I think it's important to talk about because people should know about this concept. I hope that it gives them tools and help them reflect on their own life experience too. And it helps them as much as it helped me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I can literally go on and on and on about this topic. So I'm so excited to do a little bit of a deep dive here with you and exchange ideas and how we both view gentle parenting.
Yes. All right. So the first question is, what does gentle parenting mean to you?
I love that we start with this question because I know that generally I've seen, like on social media, how gentle parenting can kind of be misunderstood based on the name alone.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. I know why people are a little bit apprehensive about the idea of raising what they believe would be like soft or gentle children. But that's not what it is. And that's why I like to bounce back and forth between calling it gentle parenting and calling it conscious parenting. And I honestly, I feel like conscious parenting is a little bit more of an appropriate name because you're just being more conscientious about your responses to your children's experiences as you raise them up. So foundationally, gentle parenting is about teaching our kids how to be aware of their own emotions and how to process those emotions so that they can overcome whatever life throws at them. And really the idea is it's going to help raise resilient, grounded, what's the word? Not self-conscious, but like, what's another word for
Self-sufficient?
Self-sufficient? Yeah, self-sufficient too, I think would be a likely outcome. But I think more like, self-confident. Self-confident. That's the word I was looking for.
Yes.
So resilient, grounded, self-confident children. And I think any parent would agree that that is a goal of theirs too. So gentle parenting is a worthy topic to look into and educate ourselves more about, because if we want to raise children to be that as adults, then maybe there's some, useful tips that we can all take from the topic of gentle parenting.
I'm thinking about my own experience, and we want the boys to be tough and strong because that's very much supported in our culture to raise strong, tough boys. So I guess I'm wondering how a gentle parenting approach would be. How would we help with that?
Like with boys?
With boys specifically. If we want to raise boys who are strong, resilient, and tough, how do we do that with gentle parenting?
So traditionally, like what you were pointing to, in my own experience too, from what I observed, because I'm not a boy and I didn't grow up with brothers, but from what I observed, boys were brought up to be, you have to be tough and strong. And that means that showing emotion other than anger, I guess, is not aligned with being strong and tough and being a man, a man. So gentle parenting, the way that we kind of like flip that on its head, if we use, or conscious parenting, is showing boys that in order to be strong and to be tough, you have to know how to handle your emotions properly. That doesn't mean stuffing them down to a place where you don't show it to others and you don't even face it yourself. Instead, it means face the emotion. Don't be afraid of the emotion. Work through it and then overcome. Move forward. So rather than like ignoring the problems and putting them away in a deep, dark place inside of our bodies to never look at it again until it appears like 10 years later, it's, no, this is what's happening right now. Let's face it together. And as a parent, our job is to be with them, to demonstrate how to do that, to be supportive so that they feel secure in being able to learn how to process their emotions. That's what I think, like to raise boys using gentle parenting. And it's not just boys too, that applies for girls also. But specifically, like I know in our culture, like we just mentioned, the goal is to raise them to be strong and tough and men, be a man. And I think that the way that it's been handled for so long may have worked for a few, but not the many, because inadvertently it taught them to shove all those feelings down and don't look at them ever again. But you and I both know that doesn't work. And eventually the feelings come back up again, but it gets filtered through what is an acceptable outlet for emotion. Right. And like I said already, that's in our culture, that's anger. Or I'm sure globally too, that's anger. So, and we see that angry people.
So have you ever come across people that say, or people out on the internet that talk about how gentle parenting raises soft kids?
That's the impression or the assumption on the belief that gentle parenting is raising soft children. Yeah. And I think that they're not entirely wrong in that belief, because if gentle parenting is not done accurately or appropriately, or if it's misunderstood by the parent who's trying to apply it, it could very much lean into the, what is that type of parenting style? Words are escaping me today. It's not authoritarian. It's not authoritative.
Authoritative? Permissive?
Permissive, yes. Gentle parenting can very much look like permissive parenting if not done correctly. So permissive parenting kind of looks like, you don't fight back against your children. You let them have all of their feelings. You let them have all of their needs and wants, and you don't raise your voice. You don't make things difficult for them. You clear the path and you let them live freely and, joyously, which it's not all bad, but when done excessively like that, doesn't lead to the kind of outcomes that we want for our kids either. So I can see where that opinion can come from the general population, how gentle parenting can lead to raising those kind of kids. But like I said, I think that's only when it's not done properly.
Yeah.
Is that what you've experienced too when you did your own research into gentle parenting? How, if done improperly, it can be sort of more like permissive parenting?
I have read stuff like that online. I have read that some people don't support gentle parenting because of that, because they believe that it might raise children who are soft. But I think there is a different level of a different approach to raise children who are strong and resilient still, without having to use, conventional parenting, physical discipline, yelling, punishment, threats, all that stuff. So, I think it's about respecting children for being human beings and honoring their feelings, honoring their interests and passions and so forth. And I think that sometimes we might, as a parent, think that we know what's best for them. And to some degree, maybe we do. In terms of safety, we have more life experience. But in terms of their passions and interests and skills, and sometimes we have this maybe agenda for them. I think I saw maybe some podcasts or some interviews with the expert on conscious parenting, which is Dr. Chifali. And she talks about how sometimes parents, even before the child is born, when they're expecting the child, they know it's already the gender, right? Girl, boy. And we are already imagining their life. We're already imagining how we're going to dress them, what their interests are going to be, what kinds of extracurricular activities they're going to have in school. And, and that is part of our ego, human ego. And that's already in a way showing this need for control before the child even arrives. And I know parents don't like to admit that or hear this. I know it's uncomfortable, but I think it's very true and very relatable.
Yes, I agree. And it's something that I think it's worth bringing our awareness to, because we can sort of by default do that. And I understand becoming a parent and getting to meet your child and raise your child is such an exciting thing. And we've always had dreams and visions for who our child is going to be and what we hope and dream for them and like the path in life that they take. It's so important to remember at the same time that they are their own soul and they deserve to have a say, even as young as, being a toddler and how they experience their life journey. And we're here to support them and guide them on that, not decide for them. And so sometimes it can be hard because like when we're trying to parent, we've lived a lot more life than they have. And there are many things that we know that they have not learned yet. And there are moments where we just want them to listen to us and heed our advice and like trust us. But that's part of what we're trying to apply with gentle parenting is to instill that lesson, but give them the chance to let it sink in, give them the chance to resonate with it, and try to meet them where they're at, especially like where they are in their stage of like cognitive development. Sometimes I hear parents, tell me if you've ever heard this before too, because I think it's pretty interesting. Sometimes I hear parents say things like, they did that on purpose. They got back at me. And the child's like 4, 5 years old. And knowing what I know, of course, I understand their little brains aren't wired that way yet. They're not thinking, oh, this thing is going to really upset my mom, so I'm going to do it. They're very self-interested. It's their wants and their needs. So as parents, the main thing about applying gentle parenting is not about focusing so much on the child. That's part of it, yes. But I think the meat of it is being aware and focused on ourselves and how we respond or react to certain experiences with raising our kids. That self-awareness is required to use it properly. Why is this activating me? Why is their behavior making me this upset? I need to really sit down and figure that out because it's going to help me understand why I become reactive. And then hopefully by figuring it out, I won't become so reactive and I can be more present and connected with my kid.
Yeah. All right, all the moms in my life, listen up. I love you all. But this is so important. I have heard that before. They're doing it intentionally. They just want to make my life difficult. They're
disrespectful. They're disrespecting me. They don't know what that means yet.
And think about what that means. Like, think about what you're already seeing your toddler or even, adolescent or teen. You're already seeing them with that image of they're trying to hurt me intentionally. They're trying to go against me intentionally. They're trying to make my life difficult intentionally. And that's very heavy energy to approach any conversation with. And, I think that that's something that we can be aware as adults. Like, how am I approaching this? How are they perceiving me? Just by the body language, they know that you're in a bad mood, that you are dangerous at that moment because of not really dangerous, but just, the emotion. And so the child might go into fight, flight, freeze because, oh no, my mom's not in a good mood, or my dad, or,
Yeah.
So I think being self-aware.
Why are they trying to hurt me? I'm talking about their child. My first question is, why do you think they're trying to hurt you? Like, why is that where your brain goes? That it's a personal thing. I would argue most of the time it's not personal at all. At all. They're trying to communicate with you how they're feeling. And when they do that, you make it about yourself. Not to say that I'm like Little Miss Perfect over here. I definitely still have my moments where I get pushed to the edge and I get flustered and frustrated, and I react sometimes. I still do. Even after all of the work that I've done, I'm only human, and it's going to happen to everybody. We're not trying to achieve perfection with this. We're only trying to achieve awareness.
Right.
Self-awareness and self-compassion so that we can work through these things that we react to, the things that activate us in such strong emotional ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a good question to ask yourself. Why am I making this about me right now?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is something that conscious parenting explains, how we are raising our children, and at the same time we are raising our own inner child, because our children will trigger things within us. It's that they will challenge us in a lot of ways, but if we see it as a gift, these things will happen. But it's for me to be able to reflect on myself and look inwards. Why am I responding in this way? Why does this matter so much to me? Another statement that I often hear from parents is, during parenting, they'll say, you can't trust anyone, or there's no friends. Friends don't exist.
Yeah.
Friends don't exist. You can't trust anyone, only the family. Those kinds of statements I've heard before too. Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I have. And I used to believe it too when I was younger, before going to school and taking this professional route. I would hear that from adults in my life and I would believe it
Mm-hmm.
because they would share their own stories of what happened to them, da, da, da. And now I realize, okay, you're projecting your own life experiences onto young people.
Mm-hmm.
And, not to say that it's entirely wrong. I'm sure there are plenty of friends that are untrustworthy, but that doesn't mean all of them. There are plenty of family that are trustworthy. That doesn't mean all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't be so generalized with our approach to parenting either.
Mm-hmm.
So leave space for that. Maybe this is what works right now, and maybe that will change. When trying to be with our children and process emotions, and turning it inward as well. I like what you said earlier about learning how to apply gentle parenting. Kind of forces us to also be a parent for our self, specifically like our own inner child. If we're sitting with the things that trigger us and trying to explore and figure out why that triggers us, it's probably a wounded part of our inner child. And that needs some love and some care. And it's only up to us to do that. And it can really expose a lot of things that maybe weren't in the consciousness for ourselves for a long time. Becoming a parent really opens your eyes to those things if you're paying attention.
Yeah. I was thinking about that message of you can't trust anyone or there's no friends. We're not giving the children the opportunity to practice building healthy relationships and practice their good judgment and discernment. We're already, almost like assuming that they're not going to be able to do it, that they won't be able to establish healthy relationships by giving them that advice. So, I mean, we're almost taking away a gift of self-trust.
I understand as a parent, it's sort of like an instinctual thing. You want to try to avoid pain for your children as much as possible. Like you want to try to minimize any risk that they experience pain. And especially like from our own personal life experiences, we may know, like be very aware of where some of those pain points are that they could come across. But I think you're right. It's doing them a disservice from being able to build that ability for themselves to develop and nurture healthy relationships. And unfortunately, it's going to come with some heartbreak and disappointment. Just like trying to succeed at something, it's going to come with failures. It's just inevitable. It's part of the journey. They have to experience some painful things with their friends or their romantic relationships as they start to take that journey on their own. And as a parent, we have no choice but to kind of watch them walk into where how it's going to end. And we have to just sit back and watch. And it's painful for us too. And that's probably why we try to avoid it.
Yeah.
But it's the big picture in the long run. It does them so much more good than avoiding the pain would.
what would be a different approach to something like this? Because I understand the concern of the parent. I understand that. I mean, I don't have children of my own, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and it hurts me to see them hurting whenever they have a, falling out with a friendship or something like that. So I know it's painful to go through that. So what would be a different approach in gentle parenting where we can still help them build strength and confidence and resilience in relationships?
Yeah. Well, first, to put out this disclaimer, it's necessary to the point of their safety.
Yeah.
Like, if you know that they are involved with someone who is a pretty clear danger to their safety, then yes, absolutely step in and take control of that situation.
Absolutely.
100%. But if it's not that, if it's like, this guy is not really serious about my daughter and she really likes him and she's insistent that she wants to keep seeing him, and I know that eventually he's gonna break her heart or do something like that, but she won't listen to me, so I have to let her experience that. Gentle parenting approach guides us to be ready for the recovery process of it. Be right there, non-judgmental, open and available to help them, to kind of like be beside them as they work through the feelings of the fallout. So acknowledging what they're feeling, trying to help them identify and label exactly what it is that they're feeling. So instead of like, I just feel bad, it's like, no, like, what is it? What kind of bad? Heartbroken? Are you disappointed? Are you angry? Are you regretful? Helping them identify exactly what it is that they're feeling, and then working with them to process that in a self-compassionate way. So in order for us to do that, we as parents have to be grounded ourselves. It's not the time to say, I told you so. It's not the time to say, well, you should have listened to me, or, well, next time you're not gonna, fall for a guy like that. And, it's not the time for lessons or criticism. It is the time to connect with them emotionally and help them learn how to process these feelings in a healthy way. So that's really the lesson that they're going to take from these experiences. So as a parent, it's sort of like we're sitting next to them on this roller coaster and feeling all of the emotions with them and being there as the grounded, secure person in their life to remind them that they're going to be okay. And I'm going to be here with you until you are.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that.
Yeah, and it's good to reflect on our own experience, like when we were heartbroken or when we had a falling out with someone in a relationship. And if we allow ourselves to learn from those experiences, typically we learn some really valuable lessons like self-love, self-respect, setting boundaries, listening to our intuition. If we see like a red flag or something, rather than ignoring it, let's question it. So there's a lot of really valuable information that we gain from sad and terrible experiences in relationships, breakups, falling out of friendships, all that. Even though it's very painful, there's a lot of wisdom in it too. So I think having the parent serve as a safe space to come back and repair, and I'm here for you. That's really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Just be with them on that. But I think going back to and how a parent can do that, how a parent can be ready to do that with their kids. I mean, that example is on like reflecting on what it might be like to be parenting a teenager, but even going back to like infancy and toddlerhood, where emotions are explosive sometimes. When they happen in big ways, positive and negative. It can be jarring to the parent, and sometimes the parent can be reactive, like, okay, settle down, so how a parent can do that for their kid at any age is we have to save space for ourselves to bring ourselves in and be grounded. And we can only do that if we know how to care for ourselves. And we can only care for ourselves or know how to if we know how our own system works, how our own nervous system works, what activates us, what triggers us, and everything of the like. So it's a lot of that self-exploration and that self-work, which is not easy. That's
a good place to start with all of this. I think that versus doing the work yourself as a parent. And having the courage to face that and accept that there's parts of you that maybe are not the healthiest. And that's okay. These are things that we learned growing up, patterns that we're repeating. But if you're wanting to elevate yourself, you're wanting to work on yourself and become a better version of yourself for yourself and for your children, I think it starts with your own internal work.
Yeah.
And that's a big decision.
Absolutely. And a scary one too. I can empathize. But really, helping our kids starts with helping ourselves.
Yeah.
We are the foundation for their childhood. Like we're that platform that they grow from. So we want to help our children grow into like a healthy adult, to kind of go along with the metaphor, like a tree, let's say, that the soil that they grow from us, we have to be in a healthy place.
Yeah.
It's not just do as I say, not as I do, or just take my advice. I've lived life longer. I know what I'm talking about. We have to live by example. I'm sorry. I know that that's probably not what people want to hear or have heard before, but will roll their eyes at. But it's true because, like I talked to you before about Albert Bandura's social learning theory.
Yeah.
Children learn how to navigate life through watching the people in their lives, the people that they're closest to, especially parents and guardians, by mirroring and modeled behavior.
Yeah.
If you're wondering where your kids get these things from, gotta look in the mirror.
Yes. And if there's parents out there who are listening and are thinking, oh, I screwed it up. No, you didn't. You tried your best, and that's all that matters. Your intentions were always good. I do believe parents' intentions are always good. And it's part of starting this kind of process is self-compassion, and it starts with modeling that. So compassion for yourself. If you feel like you've done something wrong, there's regrets, there's guilt there, completely understandable. So if you are listening to this and you're wanting to start on your journey for gentle parenting, whether it's for your children that you still have, or your future grandchildren, or children of other people in your life, and you want to be able to practice some of this gentle parenting, what would be maybe three things that they can start with for this new year? What are three activities, resources, or tools that you think that would be really helpful for them to start with?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think that this is another really deep and touching point that's important for anyone who's interested to know. And I'm going to say it loud for the people in the back. It's never too late to do some repairing. Even if your child is in their 50s, it's never too late to go back and say, I realized that what I did was not helpful for you. And I am so sorry. If I had known better, I would have done better. I did the best that I could. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. Just go back and try to repair what you feel like was a mistake of yours with your kids, young or old. We never get too old to want to hear "I'm sorry" from our parents. It would do so much healing. So it's never too late. First of all, if you're feeling like you've made mistakes, just know that you can start today. Yes. You can start with gentle parenting today. You can start with gentle parenting yourself, your own inner child. It's any day is a good day to start, no matter where you're at in life, where your kids are at in life. So that's number one. Yeah. And so number two, how can they start today? That is a good question. Oh, no, your question was activities for the new year.
There are three things that they can work on for themselves.
Okay. 3 things or 3 tools for the new year. Well, I guess my first approach with anything is just education.
Yeah.
Just do your own reading into what gentle parenting is. Dr. Becky Kennedy is a great resource. She has a book called Good Inside.
Oh, wonderful.
And I love learning from her and her take on how she applies gentle or conscious parenting. She gives a lot of real life examples within her own I think she's got 3 children, within her own experiences and what her kids said, how she responded, what that does for them. So she's a great resource that I would always recommend. So first thing is education. And then the second thing is just try one thing. Just start with one thing that you want to start putting into practice, whether that is deciding to yourself, anytime that my child talks to me, I'm going to put my phone down and look at them in the face. I'm just going to start making that a habit to show them that I'm paying attention and they've got my full attention. Or it could be starting with the repairing, going back and confronting your child about something that you are taking ownership over that you realized was not the right move to make, and you're not expecting anything back from them. You just want to let them know that you see it and you understand it now. And if you could change it, you would. And from now on, you will try to change it. So that could be another step. If you want to start with the repairing, if that feels like the best place to start for you. But what do you think? Anything that you want to add?
I love that. I think those are wonderful ways to start. The repairing is so, so important because I know personally, I don't think I ever experienced repairing growing up. So I think repairing would be so helpful. I do wonder how that would impact the relationship in a positive way with your child. So repairing after a outburst, a reaction, going back and apologizing and trying to communicate about what just happened and why. And I think that shows your children a very human side of you, that you can accept responsibility and apologize. And you're modeling that for them. So I think that's a great place to start. I also was thinking about
they can also apologize when they make mistakes.
Yes.
And that's something that every human being ought to know how to do.
Absolutely. It's a necessary experience to have for the rest of our life.
Yeah. And I don't know what it was with our parents and grandparents, if it was a generational thing or a cultural thing, but similar to you, I didn't hear very much of, I was wrong, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have said that, I'm going to try to do better. Maybe it's something to do with what we were talking about earlier with raising boys. Does that show weakness in the parents or something like that? But yeah, let's shake that up, because I don't think that is totally accurate. I think it actually shows strength as a human to recognize when you're in the wrong and to reconcile that.
Yes, I agree with that, because if it were so easy, we all would do it. It would be so easy to accept responsibility and apologize and not hold grudges or avoid conflict and so forth. So it does take a level of courage to do that.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about journaling. I know journaling has been very helpful to me because it allows me to reflect on myself, on how I showed up today, and plan for the next day. So successes, where did I do well and what were the areas that need some improvement? And I think maybe starting that as a habit every night, sitting down on the table with your children to reflect on how this day went. How were you this day? Did you experience doubt, fear, insecurity? Did you experience courage, strength? Were you brave? All those kinds of experiences, and learning from that. I think that cultivates accountability for yourself, but also just this mindset of trying to become better.
Yeah, journaling is a really great way, especially when you're trying to apply new strategies or trying to build new habits. Journaling is a great way to kind of stay informed on your journey, how this is going, especially when you hit something that you know runs really deep. Even if you don't do the journaling with your kids, you can do that on your own and just jot down, what were the things that made me feel reactive today? And what happened? And why do I think that hearing that or seeing that caused me to react the way that I did? And just really, really laying it out, digging into it, and getting to the core as much as you possibly can. You can do this with a therapist too.
Yes.
But you can totally do it on your own as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very important work to do. A book that I would recommend is by Dr. Shefali. She has 2 books that I've read, Conscious Parent and The Parenting Map.
Yes.
They're wonderful books. Highly recommend to read those. I came across the concept of gentle parenting and conscious parenting right after grad school, and I was fascinated by it. I just started researching and reading books because it was almost like a paradigm shift that happened for me. I started just seeing life in a different way, and then I started applying that to myself. So that was really healing and helpful to me, and I hope it's helpful to others.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my experience, when starting to apply gentle parenting as a parent, and then realizing that there are places within my own self that also probably needed a bit of gentle parenting, how that's done, if anyone is like curious about like how do you gentle parent yourself exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I mentioned a moment ago, when you do the journaling and you kind of break down what activated me, what happened, why did I feel activated by that situation? When you do get to the core of it and you realize, oh, when I was a little girl and I was crying, nobody was there to say, that's okay, you can cry. Normally the response I got was, stop crying. Why are you crying? I'll give you something to cry about. This is nothing to cry about. If that was your experience as a child, then there's probably a wounded part of you, part of yourself that needs a little bit of your own repairing. So you can actually go in and parent that part of yourself and let her know there was nothing wrong with crying, and there is nothing wrong with crying. We're entitled to have your feelings, and you needed that love and support. And I am here for you now to show you that love and support. Have your feelings. You can cry. And then when that part of ourself feels a little bit more healed, then we free up that ability to give that to our kids.
Yeah.
We no longer feel like that's missing within us. So that block shouldn't be there anymore. That's the hope, at least. And by eliminating that block, now we feel connected with our kids in that way, because now we can actually relate to that feeling of being told, I understand why you're feeling the way you feel, and I'm here with you if you want to cry.
When you were speaking, what I was thinking about was when we heal pain, we make space for love. And when we do that, we're able to just shower our children with attention, unconditional love and acceptance, because we have so much to give and to accept that love that we receive, because children just really want to pour you with love. They want your attention. They want to make you proud. And yeah, I think it's the journey that we should go through, healing our pain that oftentimes we're not responsible for. We were children, but it is our responsibility now as adults, I believe, to work to healing and to closing some of those wounds so we can grow and learn how to love ourselves and others.
Yeah, exactly. So that self-love, that's where the love that we pour to our kids comes from. That's why it starts with ourselves. If we don't have that, because we have a lot of like unhealed wounds and unresolved things and internal blocks, that's what we're giving our kids, is what we got, because that's the only well that we can actually pull from. And we start projecting those things onto our kid. If we still feel embarrassed because we were crying in public and our parents made us feel embarrassed about doing that because we were embarrassing them or whatever it is, then that now we are passing it on to the next generation. We still feel embarrassed because we haven't healed from it yet. So we show that embarrassment when they do that, and then they feel embarrassed about it. And that's how the patterns continue.
Yeah.
It does
a
start
great
with
example. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful example to dive into more, because there's so many situations where I feel like parents are running against time. They're rushing somewhere or something's going on. And so maybe their patience level is not there 100%. And then maybe those are the moments I would imagine we end up reacting, and then we regret later. We feel guilty later.
Yes.
So being in the grocery store and, you have your kid who is having a tantrum because they want some chocolate or they want a toy. Mm-hmm. What might the parent be experiencing in that moment?
If embarrassment is not there, what you pointed to is likely there is we don't have time for this. We have to get to the next place that we're going at a certain time, or so-and-so is waiting on us, or this place is crowded and we're in everybody's way. We're making the people around us very uncomfortable, or all of that combined, which can cause so much like friction and intensity inside of our own bodies. And now our nervous system is going through the roof.
Yes.
Dysregulated. And because we're dysregulated and maybe we haven't taught ourselves yet how to regulate our own nervous system, we're projecting it onto our kids. We're feeling nervous and anxious and over the edge and just overstimulated. And we're trying to control our kid so that that can control ourselves. And that's not how it works. It's the other way around. Controlling their feelings does not control yours. It's controlling your own feelings is what helps them control theirs. So being aware of that can really help. And that example of the grocery store actually happened to me not too long ago, because it's Christmas time and there are toys displayed everywhere. And she's aware of Santa now. So she wanted so badly to take that toy home because she didn't want to wait for Santa, she said. And I was trying to tell her, I even told her beforehand, I said, we're not here for anything but this, this, and this. I tried to mentally prepare her. But she's not perfect and nobody is. So she pushed that out of her mind and she tried asking for it anyway, which she's determined. I love that. So I tried reminding her again, we're only here for these things. We're not here for that today. Put it on your Christmas list. Maybe you'll get it for Christmas. Wasn't going through. Her emotions started elevating and elevating and elevating, and she was starting to cry. And so because I have done this preparation in my own mind, I knew I needed to put the cart aside. I needed to put my stuff down, and I needed to bring her into a safe space where there wasn't too much foot traffic, get down to her level and talk to her. But while I was doing that, I felt in my heart, I felt myself getting agitated and flustered, and all of those feelings were coming up. So I was doing some deep breathing myself away. But I had so much consciousness around what I needed to do in this moment to help her, that I was able to eventually. It took a while, but I was just I was doing the behavioral things to try to soothe her nervous system. I was rubbing her back. I was reminding her to take some deep breaths. I was trying to with the five senses. I was, smell this candle and whatever. It took a little while, but we got there. And when her emotions were down and calm again, we went over it again about the whole Christmas list and only here for this and da-da-da. I acknowledged what she was feeling. And then she was able to relax and we were able to finish our thing. But I wouldn't have known that I could do it that way without doing the practice and the reading and the researching and all of that. So that is a great example and a very relatable experience with all parents. But it is tough. And that's kind of the point of this is even when you've been practicing it for so long, you're still going to feel those emotions rise within yourself. And it's up to you to manage that first before you help your kids.
Yeah. Self-soothe yourself first. I've had a lot of parents talk about this before, and I know that in that moment in the grocery store, have your kid on the floor, throwing a tantrum, yelling, and oftentimes parents go into their mind. People are staring. People are staring at me.
And try to use that, control them.
Right.
Yourself, look, everybody's watching you. Yeah.
Yes, everybody's watching me. They're judging me. I'm a bad parent. They're going to think I'm a bad parent, that I'm not in control, all these things. And that can really get in the way of the relationship that you have with your kid. So I know in gentle parenting, there's a concept of connect before correct.
Yes.
And so I think validating your kid's experience, you really want that toy. And it's sad that you can't get it right now. But you really want it. And you just validate why they're feeling that way. First, you connect in that sense, and then you set the boundary. And they still might not like it, and they still might yell, and that's okay.
Yeah. So you see, gentle parenting doesn't raise softies because you can still say no. You can still be firm with the boundaries. You just do it in a gentle way with compassion and awareness about how they're feeling. And like you said, connecting with them on those feelings. And even saying like, I want to get myself a treat from the store, but I've got a budget and I've got to say no to myself.
Yeah.
And so I know how sad it is sometimes. Yeah, so you connect with them. You're absolutely right. Connection before correction. And I think it was Dr. Markham. I could be wrong.
Yeah, Markham.
Said it's 80% connection, 20% correction. Parenting as a whole. So I've had conversations with parents who are very focused on the correction, and I've had to invite them to relax. Just relax. You don't have to always make it a lesson. Let them have their mistakes. Use that moment to connect with them and say, I know how that feels. It happened to me one time. Let me tell you that story.
Yeah. And I know you talked about this before. It's not as hard or as difficult as we think it is to connect. It can be very simple as getting down to their level, eye to eye contact, and just validating them, looking at them and nodding and just validating their feelings. That helps them feel connected. And it's almost like you're having to create this little bubble in the middle of the grocery store, but it's just you and your children.
Yeah. Because they're not paying attention to everyone else around. Like I said earlier, they don't have their brain is not, especially when they're like young. Their brain is not wired to have that kind of awareness of, oh, everybody's watching me. They only become aware of that because the parent tells them to. Because we as adults are very aware of that, right? So they have that ability to be in that bubble as long as you create that for them. So it does boil down to, we're the foundation of it. We have to start with ourselves and then work out from there. But it really is not as complicated as it might seem or feel sometimes. It's more about the simple things. So getting down to their eye level, connecting with them, taking an interest in their interests, even if it doesn't interest you. I would bet that every parent does have an interest in why they are interested in those things, because you want to get to know your kid. So if they're super into video games and you don't like video games, you can talk to them about, well, who is your favorite character in this video game? Why is that your favorite character? What is it about that character that you relate to? And then you get to know your kids. You know? So it can be fun if you give yourself a chance.
Something that a lot of parents struggle with also that I've encountered in my practice is sibling rivalry, conflicts between siblings, not wanting to share toys, things like that, or not wanting to share just the same bedroom or the same space. In what way could we address that is considered gentle parenting?
Yeah, and I think the experience that I've heard from parents, not that I've had in my own life because I have one child, but what I've heard from other parents is the older siblings' responsibility, mostly, to be the one to, I guess, like, do what's expected. Like, let younger sibling have the toy, or let them do this, and da-da-da-da. Like, that's the default, is you're the older one, so you're more capable of handling the situation. But I think the missed opportunity there is giving them both a chance to connect with each other and recognize one another's emotions. So, I think sometimes the older sibling can be the catalyst to that. They can take charge and talking to their younger sibling and saying, I know you really want your turn with this. I'll let you have your turn when I'm done. Can you wait? So you can start with the older sibling and giving them like the guidebook on how to do that with the younger sibling. And in turn, that teaches the younger sibling how to also do it in return. But what do you think? I mean, have you had any experiences with that?
Yeah, I think that is so true that sometimes the default is the oldest is the responsible one, or the oldest is the one that's at fault or that should have the solution, or whatever it may be. But I think it is important to sit them down and help them have a conversation. Like, you mediate that, validate that they're having a difficult time, they're upset, and then you help them help them develop those communication skills that maybe they don't have yet. And by modeling that and by redirecting the anger to be expressed in a healthier way, with kinder words and kinder hands, but also not like minimizing the anger, the emotion, or ignoring it. I think it's important to acknowledge it and normalize that we all experience anger and all emotions are welcomed, but we need to learn how to express them. And I think that in those moments, that will be a great way to reflect and learn.
Yeah. Because I think the danger in defaulting to the older sibling is the more responsible one, and they need to be the one to like give the younger sibling whatever they need. They need to be the one to stop the argument. They need to be the one to take charge in that situation. I think that I can imagine, because I'm also not an oldest sibling. So I wouldn't know. I was the baby. So I was the one who was like, always got what they wanted. But I would imagine it would make them feel pretty dismissed. If that's the approach that the parent takes. Your feelings don't matter here. Just do what handle your younger sibling. Just give them the toy, or play nice. Be the older sibling. That can feel pretty dismissive, I would imagine. And when a person feels like their feelings don't matter for long enough, what's the outcome of that? It's like an overcompensation usually.
Right.
So, yeah, I think you're right. Like, giving them the direction, like telling them, instead of what not to do, stop yelling at your brother, stop fighting over the toy. You tell them what to do. Hey, guys, talk to each other. I know you're feeling a lot, but how you express those feelings can be okay or not okay. The feelings are always okay, but gentle hands, or take a time out and come back together. Come to a compromise. If the younger sibling is like way, way younger and really can't do any of those things, then you spend that time with the one who's older and can understand. Same approach, get down to their level, validate and acknowledge what they're feeling, talk to them about, encourage them to come up with the solutions too. So we see what the problem is here. What do you think you can do to help the situation? What are your ideas? Getting them to work that part of their brain to problem solve on their own.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. Kids are so intelligent and they're able to just figure things out. They come up with the most creative solutions and it works out. If we just trust that they can think for themselves and they can find a creative solution to the conflicts with their siblings, if you just hold space for them. The other thing is that I know for gentle parenting, we often use the environment to help and facilitate the parenting and the relationship versus trying to change the child. So if there is something in the environment that's causing some of this tension or conflict, like video games or, a TV show or something, and they want to see different movies, or maybe helping them come up with a solution, like having a timer, or today we choose yours, but tomorrow we choose mine. And I think that that's kind of a way of using the environment. If we have to take something or we have to limit that, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that those are also really excellent solutions. And I think also just in general, because today's topic's not about video games and, extended periods of time on technology and involved with media, but timers on things, or externalizing solutions also can be really helpful in helping them sort of understand
Yeah.
how to process through these hiccups or these
Yeah.
issues between themselves and their siblings. So guiding them or encouraging them to come up with a solution on their own, but also adding to whatever it is that they come up with. And it helps them feel pretty empowered. I think, like, they came up with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a place in this family.
Mm-hmm.
They have a belongingness into this family, because when we allow them to do that, we let them know we wouldn't have been able to solve this without you. So that's another component that adds to it. Doesn't have to be so complicated for the parent. We don't have to be the ones with the answers all the time. We can let the kids take charge every once in a while. Not only is it good for them in building up their resilience and their empowerment and their confidence, but also it helps take some of the load off of us. We don't have to be the ones all the time. Like when our kids are bored, constantly coming to us, I'm bored. What do I do? What can I do? And as a parent, we feel, especially modern parents, we feel a pressure to keep them engaged and active all dang day.
Yeah.
And boredom can actually be a really good thing. It encourages their creativity and their like problem solving skills.
Mm-hmm.
So we can sort of encourage and initiate that by telling them to, I don't know, why don't you see what you can do with the items you have in this desk in front of you? What can you make out of that?
Mm-hmm.
And then let their gears start turning. But as a parent, can you imagine how easy that would be if your kid came to you and said they're bored and all you had to do was, hey, there's some stuff outside. What can you make out of that? And go off, have fun.
and they would have the best time of their life. I mean, I think kids can have so much fun with the simplest things. I mean, we would make houses out of dirt when I was little, or like little bridges out of dirt, or even
I would play with bugs.
Yes, I would carry bugs in my pocket. It's like we would just have fun being outdoors and running in nature. It was so fun. And so I think that's something that I do believe in. We're having to support kids' creativity, fun, and just being out in nature, being more active out in nature and being creative. I feel like that's something that we need more of. And you mentioned something really important too, that nowadays I see that parents keep their kids so busy. And I know that there's a lot of benefits to it, like social skills, responsibility, all that, if they're in sports and different stuff. But I do wonder if the kids want to be involved and busy in that way, or are they doing it to keep their parent happy? And I think that's where we want to sit with them and have a conversation with them about their interests or passions. And we talked briefly about, what conscious parenting is. And sometimes we can project our own ego, our own goals, our own shortcomings, our own whatever it may be onto the child. And we already have this idea of what their life's going to be like. So I think taking a step back and give them choices so they can make an informed decision. This is what's available. This is, that's kind of what I think I would do. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I hear pretty often from parents, well, I never had these things, so I want to make sure my kid has them. Or I had this all the time, so I want to make sure my kid doesn't have it, whatever it may be, everything in between. And I always wonder, did you ask your kids if they want those things? Or, remember that they are their own soul too. So it happens. I think it's very normal and very natural for a parent to do that, reflect on their own childhood, apply it to the kids that they're raising, or, do some sweeping through it, like keep this, toss that, and whatever. But it's so important to remember to incorporate your kid along with those decisions. If you always wanted to be a basketball player and your kid also wants to play basketball, then great, it aligns. But if they're not interested in that and they want to do musical theater, then that's their decision as a parent. Then I think the more important thing to focus on is is this genuinely an interest of theirs? And B, how can I make sure that they feel that they can always come to me and talk about their interests or their desires or their insecurities? And how do I make that happen? By showing them that I'm always open, whatever they come to me with. I'm not going to reject or dismiss or invalidate what they're thinking and what they're feeling, even if I don't agree with it, which is going to happen.
I'm thinking about what would be the consequences of a parent who is not practicing this, and instead they're like, no, you're going to be in football because I want for you to be in football, or I want for you to, do this or that, but the kid doesn't really want to, so they're being almost, forced into doing that. How would that put a strain in the relationship with their children?
I think the child feels like, well, my feelings and my wants don't matter to my parent. Apparently, they don't matter. So if that doesn't matter, why would anything else matter to them? And they all gravitate towards somebody else who makes them feel like it matters to me. And whether that person is a healthy choice for them or not. So we see that kids will turn to not great influences, but because that person makes them feel seen and heard and understood, they have that connection and they're bonded. So as a parent, I would never want that. So it's important to make sure that even if you don't agree with their wants or choices, focus on that connection always. Help them feel seen and heard and understood. And then you can talk about, here's why I think that this other option could be better. Like, are you willing to hear me out? And if they're feeling seen and heard and understood, all of their needs are being met. So they will have space to hear you out as the parent.
Yeah. And as a parent, if I think reflecting on that would be so powerful and helpful. Why is this so important for me? Why is it hard for me to accept this part of my child? And maybe there's something else underneath there. I don't want for them to experience shame, criticism, bullying, things that maybe I experienced as a child and haven't really worked through myself. Therefore, I'm trying to protect my child. And that's why I do believe that parents' intentions, for the most part, are always good. And this awareness of like, why am I doing this? Why does this matter? Can help you uncover some things that might need some attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. The intentions may, for the most part, always be good, but the actions that come from those intentions may not be good.
Yeah. And we have to acknowledge that every child is different. Every family is different. Every child will have a different personality, even in the same household, And so I think that what works for one child might not work for another. But biologically in our bodies, having that attention and holding space for someone and just helping them regulate their nervous system, that can apply for anyone. And I think that helps. Yeah, that will cultivate that safety and security in the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So if it feels overwhelming or like I have no idea where to start, this is so much information. There's so many tools and tips that I can apply. I feel like I have to apply. I think foundationally, just start with getting that connection with yourself first and foremost.
Yeah.
Just turn inward, reflect, practice self-regulation, become aware of what activates your nervous system and gets it all haywire, what helps you self-soothe, figure out why this thing activated my nervous system and why it got so reactive. Start there and then work outward, because whatever you apply for yourself that feels right and it feels calming and it feels good, more than likely it can work for all of your kids, because like we said, it's just a human thing. It's just biology. And if you can start there, regulating yourself, helping your kid regulate, everything else will fall into place beyond.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I like to simplify things. Yes. I like a formula too. That's how my brain works. So hopefully that helps others too.
Absolutely. And if parents are wanting to work on this and they really are ready to make that change into more gentle parenting approaches, where can they find some resources? Where can they find you? Where could they start?
Yeah, it's a great question, because especially if you are the first person in your family to try to break out into this new path and do something different from what the rest of your relatives or parents and grandparents have done, it can be kind of daunting and maybe a little bit scary, because you might get some opinions and some criticism back. So it's good to have extended support to be there with you as you embark on this journey. So yeah, seeking a therapist to be your support system as you start to pave this way, I think is a great idea. There's also books and other professionals that are on all of the socials. You mentioned Dr. Shefali. She's a great one. I think that she has a lot of really great advice and insight. Dr. Becky Kennedy is another one that I mentioned earlier. So those are two excellent places to start. I also specialize in helping women who want to overcome generational unwanted patterns, and they want to start paving their own way in modern parenting and applying gentle parenting with their own family. So you can find me at rootedmamatherapy.com. On my website, I'm on socials as well. And anyone who's listening can direct message me with the words Rooted Mama, and you can have some of my worksheets that I've already developed for free. So that can also help you get started if you're interested in doing some of that self-work, unpacking and figuring out the core of your own reactions and where it all comes from.
I am so incredibly grateful to have you on the podcast. The mission of your practice just truly resonates with me, and it speaks to me because I really believe in it. It starts with the children and the future generation. So I think it's just a beautiful area that you're focusing on, because we just need it. We just need it so much. And so it's incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun talking about this, and I know that we could go on for so many more hours going through examples and experiences, but I think that we touched on almost everything that is important for a starter or beginner. So I'm so grateful you had me here. Thank you.
And to all the parents in my life, I hope that you found this conversation helpful, and please share with anybody that might benefit from listening to this conversation. Always remember that you are trying your best. Self-compassion is really, really important. And love yourself. Love yourself so your children can learn how to love themselves too.
And you're not alone.
And you're not alone. We're all in this together.
Yes.
Oh.